to video number 3. We're going to do the Fusible Appliqué today. This is Lora's Zmak.
I'm Lisa Norton.
And we're the Material Girlfriends. So in your instructions here, we're going to be working on month 12, but you'll probably be working on month 3 or month 6 or month 9. So the quadrant is the same for the 4 different months. However, you'll just be working with different colors. So the first thing you're going to cut is your background fabric, which will be 13 by 37 and a half, 37. But when we're all done with this, putting on the applique, doing our blanket stitch, we're going to cut it down to 12 and a half by 36 and a half inches to fit into our quilt top. So that gives us some shrinkage space when we do our stitching. All of our Fusible Applique pieces are on page 28, 29, 28, 29, 30, and 31. These pieces are already reversed. You do not have to do your reversed applique. Reversing the pieces, tracing. So they're already reversed. Now you can trace it onto your applique.
Yeah, easy for you to say. The applique, the double-sided Fusible applique sheets.
Or you can purchase the ones that go through your printer. Now this is for an inkjet printer, not a laser, but an inkjet. So if it uses ink cartridges, you're great. If it has a powder cartridges, no, don't use that.
It uses heat, and that'll be a gummy mess in your printer.
There we go. So once I have made my Fusible Applique pieces, I have now pressed them onto the wrong side of my fabrics. And I follow this chart here to say which pieces are going on my green, which pieces are going on lime, and which pieces are going on my turquoise.
Aqua.
Thank you. Now, Lisa and I are ready to cut out our pieces. Now, you'll notice here, this is my piece, but I've sloppy cut it out. So you can see it here. I've sloppy cut my pieces so that I have applique pieces, but they're not cut to the edge yet. So now we're going to cut them on the edge. Now, Lisa's favorite scissors are these ones.
They're the perfect scissors.
And she loves them.
They have a little serrated edge. It makes cutting applique pieces out fabulous. Remember, small cuts, small scissors, big cuts, big scissors. So if you're trying to cut out your little pieces with gigantic scissors, it's not going to be quite as accurate, and it's going to be harder on your hands.
Now, I like using the Fiskar, the small scissors, small cuts, and it has a spring, and I find that this saves my hands, and I'm for the arthritis, etc. But I really like the spring-loaded ones. So we're going to cut out of our pieces. Oh, and then...
Hey, and in the comments section, let us know what your favorite pair of scissors are. We're always excited to learn about new scissors we've not tried yet.
All right, after we've cut out our pieces, we're going to take pages 36, 34,
35, 34.
I'm reading upside down.
32 and 33. So they're not exactly in order.
And we're going to then...
tape them
together to create, here we go, our template. All right.
So we just overlap it until all the lines match.
Ta-da! And we'll take those down and we'll have what we need in order to place them in the correct location. All right, let's get cutting, Lisa.
Cutting is all done.
And so now we're going to take our work and we're going to move it to the ironing board. And so we're going to adjust the camera so you can see what we're working on.
We've positioned a few of our pieces already on the light background. Now, because we're using a light background, what we've done is we've tacked or pinned our paper and our fabric to the ironing board. Now, Lora's ironing board's nice and square, so it's really easy to use. But you can always tape your paper to the back of your, to the back side of your fabric, or just pin it to your ironing board to get ready to do. Now, because we're using the light, we can see right through it. You can probably see that we could see the light, the paper placement paper underneath of it. Now, if you're using a black fabric, this is going to be much more difficult for you to see. So you'll want to use a light tablet or a clear glass with a light underneath it, so that a homemade light tablet in essence, so that you're able to get your placement of your pieces. Now, we've removed all the paper of the other pieces and we just have these last couple of left.
But Lisa had a little tip for tracing.
So you see we've got a few coins here. So when you are tracing your designs to your fusible product, instead of drawing that circle, sometimes it's a lot easier and faster if you just put down your coin and then draw around it using a fine tip pen. I like using the pens over pencils because pencils will smudge and get on your fabric, but do be sure that it is more like a permanent marker, not water soluble, because when you go to use your steam iron, you don't want any pen marks to bleed onto your fabric.
And as you can see, when we were cutting off, we were cutting just on the outside of the black line so that our pieces didn't shrink in cutting. And I'm just going to peel away that back piece.
And I'm going to put my 35 cents back into my wallet. But those are what you can use to trace. And I just need a pen to do some of these pieces.
You want a
Okay.
pen?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and take the paper off these, and I'm going to just go ahead
Lisa always prefers to do a little scratch with a pen.
It's easier than picking the edge. And sometimes picking the edge will just fray. And that's no fun when your edges fray.
Now be sure you have read the instructions on your fusible product. Know exactly how long you're going to be pressing these into place. Our product that we're using today, we are going to hit it with 6 seconds with a medium heat iron. But you're going to need read because every single one of them is different.
Okay, when you're putting your pieces down in color, it's always very helpful to refer to the color diagram that's in your book or your pattern. These pieces here are all the same shape, so it really doesn't matter if you get, I can't even see through it to see what number it is.
I think it was L26 or something.
But they are a mirror image of this side. So if your leaf isn't fitting, just try it on the other side.
There we go. This is my favorite color set. I really like this color set. It's my favorite.
I still have a few that I didn't pull the paper off, so we need to double check before we use the iron that all of the pieces have had the paper removed.
Oddly enough, if you don't remove that paper, it
doesn't seem to
fuse to your
stick.
fabric. Let me make
Pro
sure
tip
the
right
iron
there.
is warm and hot. You can also refer to your pattern page again to make sure you have your color placement in the correct order. In the short little break that we took, we already lost one of our lime green circles and had to make another one.
So easy. So here's where your little circles end up, in the trash, because it's really easy to miss one when you're trimming out your fabric. But we had trimmed some of it the other day and the rest of it this morning, and the trash had been dumped already, so we had to start over for one of our circles.
Or it will show up the moment you make a new one.
As soon as we're done.
Absolutely. So my iron is going to the medium hot way, and we're going to get ready to do our 6 seconds. So
I'm just double checking, making sure that we have all the paper off.
Do you use tweezers?
I love tweezers. I left my sewing bag at home, so I was working at Lora's house, so I didn't think I would need it. But sometimes just using a long pin will help you position everything where you want it.
Hey, some of these have paper still.
Oh, I knew some of them would. I hadn't peeled all the paper off before we got started. Okay, this position on this side looks really good.
Well, if you're ready to fuse that down, the iron is ready.
So read your product. What did our product say on ours?
6 seconds.
6 seconds, medium dry iron. Sometimes it says extra hot, hot iron, or medium iron, with steam, no steam. How many seconds? The thing is, read your product, because yours will be different than ours, but you don't want to overfuse your product. The reason is it'll turn to dust and then it won't want to adhere. If that should happen and your product was overfused or it was too old or it's just not working, you can use a little fabric glue to hold it in place until you get your stitching done. Okay, I think I'm going to get the iron without scorching you.
All right. I'm happy with my placement.
So when you are using the iron, you're going to pretty much want to just drop it in place. Don't wiggle. And we're giving
5,
ours
6.
6 seconds.
So yeah, that's done. There we go.
We can also use a Teflon sheet to protect your iron from any glue. If you use a Teflon sheet between your applique pieces and your iron, do be sure to give it an extra couple seconds because the Teflon tends to insulate it just a little bit, and the required seconds may not be enough time to fuse it.
Well, and if you want to be very careful that the Teflon doesn't cause your pieces to shift either. This is looking good, Lisa. I like this.
I don't think I got the nose very well. The beak, not a nose.
All right, after this, my next step is to do a blanket stitch. So my tips for a blanket stitch, I will take a scrap piece of paper, or scrap piece of fabric, where I'll do a practice of my blanket stitch. And of course, I started with the red on the other panel. Then I'm going to make my notes on what was my stitch width, what was my stitch length. I had reduced my tension on my machine. I was using number 30. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to safety pin it to my project. Now my other piece is already done. So this is going to get safety pinned to the corner of this. So every time I come back and forth, change a color, change, uh-oh, this one didn't stick, which means, no, you just didn't get stick. It just means you missed it.
Well, I was letting it cool and I was going to check it all.
There you go.
So I'll get this again.
Now the thing to remember when you're doing a machine blanket stitch, you can do a zigzag, you can do a straight stitch. You'll need to pay attention to the bite of your machine. So my machine likes to go 1, 2, bite, back, 1, 2, back, 1, 2, back. So then you begin to learn the rhythm of the machine. Well, every time you want to turn or go around a curve, you're going to want to have a needle down at the end of a bite. Then you'll pivot your fabrics with the foot up, and then put the foot back down and continue to sew. After it's made that bite, you'll put the needle down, you'll pick up the foot, you'll pivot again. So doing the little circles here can be quite a challenge because you're in essence doing 2 stitches, pivot, 2 stitches, pivot, 3 stitches, pivot to get all the way around that circle nice and smooth. So I've set my sewing machine up. So I've adjusted my settings all to what my little cheat sheet that's pinned to my piece of fabric here tells me to do. Now I'm going to go ahead and start with the little circle, since I was saying this is one of the more difficult ones. So we're going to do the line with a line circle. I now have my open toe foot. So I've changed out my J foot to an open toe, and I've got my glasses so that I can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to let the machine take a bite. And yes, it is going very slow, but guess what? Applique stitching is a slow process. We do not want to rush this. Now, if I went straight, I'm going off of this. Now I have a lovely button on my sewing machine where the needle stays down and the foot comes up. If you don't have that, you just want to have your needle down position. You have your needle down, you'll lift your foot up, then you're going to go ahead and pivot. Then you'll go ahead and let that foot back down, and you'll continue very slow and careful. And usually by that third one, it's just completed the stitch. It's getting ready to take a bite, so I'm going to pivot again. Now it's taking another bite. We move on. I'm going to stop, do another little pivot. It's getting ready to do another bite. Now, of course, when you're on the nice straightaway of the curves, you can just almost pedal to the metal it. Well, no, you can't. You still kind of have to guide carefully. Now, I know some of you are thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be so boring. It's not. So you just change your mindset. It's not boring. It's relaxing. Look how relaxed we are doing this. We're so relaxed that after about 30 minutes we can fall asleep.
At least take a break.
You'll be surprised how long this actually takes. It is it's worth going slow and careful. You'll be much more pleased with your results. I'll take another bite. I probably should have pivoted there. There we go. See, I can't talk and sew at the same time. Now, aren't you glad she started with a small circle? How long is this video? Oops, now I'm in a half a stitch, so there we go. Now I can pivot it. And we are just about ready to join up with the other one. And if I hit my backup button on my machine, it just gives it a lovely little knot. Hit that cut, it burps and gurgles, and there we have it.
Looks great.
Why, thank you. Super job. All right, we're adding our last piece, and now we are just about ready to sew the whole quilt top together. And it's very straightforward how your instructions are written out for you. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take this lovely 12.5-inch block, and you're going to sew these quadrants to it, so that you're going to have an 18.5-inch square. Then you'll do the same thing to this side, the same thing to this one, and the same thing to this one. Then we're sewing this one to this one to this one, and then these two halves together. So now you have a nice big center square. Our applique pieces that we've just finished doing all those little blanket stitches around, we're going to trim to their 12.5 by 36.5-inch pieces. Then we're going to take our paper piece units, which will have a 6.5-inch square sewn to a bigger rectangle, so it makes a 12.5-inch square. We're going to sew this to this one. We'll sew this one to this one, and we're going to sew this one to this big unit, this one to this big unit. Our bottom applique panel piece, we're going to take and sew that square to this one, this completed this square to this one, and sew that row to the whole quilt top. And now we're ready to quilt, which is totally my favorite part. I can't wait to get started on this one. All right, thank you for joining us.